All right, look, you better pull your fingers out of your ear and listen up, because I blew my back out bringing you this review of what could be one of the best HDR monitors ever made. But is it actually? Well, uncross those eyes and take a gander at the screen as we dive right in. And I'm going in raw, baby, because the monitor we're taking a look at today is the M32P10 from KTC, and this is a 32-inch 4K 144Hz mini LED monitor with 1,152 zones, a contrast ratio of allegedly 1 million to 1, we'll see about that, a response time of allegedly 1 millisecond MPRT, and yes, it is G-Sync and FreeSync compatible, and it also has an HDR rating of HDR 1000, so good stuff there. Yes, of course, it comes with the stand, does everything you would expect it to do, and in terms of ports, the important thing is it has HDMI 2.1. Pause the screen if you want to know more, and yes, it's also VESA mount compatible. Now, in terms of the price, normally this thing is $999.99, but right now there's a $100 off coupon plus a 10% off coupon over on Amazon, which I will have an Amazon affiliate link in the description below for your convenience and my benefit, which brings it all the way down to $799.99, and that's actually a pretty dang good price, as these monitors, when they first launched using similar display tech, were in the thousands of dollars. We're talking nearly $3,000, so this is a massive savings. But what's the catch? Well, let's go ahead and take a look. First, starting off with the color, and my first impressions, guys, is it's actually very good. Now, it's not quite as good as a Quantum Dot OLED screen, but for a mini LED monitor, I was definitely happy with its performance, and it does allow for some pretty impactful HDR thanks to that color pop. But in terms of the actual accuracy, it does track the OTF curve fairly well out of the box, although the RGB balance is an absolute disaster. So of course I was able to fix that, and I will have all of my settings and ICC profile linked in the description below in my Patreon. I highly recommend getting those if you are going to be doing any amount of even semi-professional work on this. Of course, I do appreciate the support as well. Now, in terms of HDR, I don't get as many options to adjust it. I'll see if I can do something in the future, but as of right now, it is over brightening things, and the RGB balance is not that great. But what about the color volume, as this is very important for HDR as well? And here I can say, guys, in both SDR and HDR, it's very good with an excess of 100% DCI-P3, so excellent stuff there. But what about the brightness? Also very important for an impactful HDR scene, and thankfully it is really good here, guys. You get a sustained 959 nits full screen. That puts it near the top of the charts and right under the PG32 UQX, which is a blindingly bright monitor. So really impressive stuff there. And in a 10% window, it gets even better. It is the second brightest display I have ever measured, and that is going to allow for some really bright highlights in HDR, making it an excellent HDR monitor. But how does it fare in games, as mini LED can sometimes do worse in games than it does in synthetic tests? And here it's actually still really good. In Battlefield 1, we got over 1200 nits. That's some excellent stuff. It is the third brightest display I have ever measured in that game. Now, in terms of the minimum brightness, also very important for the contrast ratios, and here it got 0.01 nits. That is nearly as good as OLEDs. That is really good as well. We're talking about a contrast ratio of 30,900 to 1. Now, I don't know how they got 1,000,000 to 1. I definitely couldn't do that, but in a checkerboard test, that is still a very good result. Now, it does have blooming, unfortunately, because although it has over 1,100 local dimming zones, that's still not the 8 million or so that you would get on an OLED display, as those have per pixel local dimming. So it is very good, but it's not going to give you that same micro contrast that OLED will. Now, in terms of the latency, is this a good gaming monitor? And according to the latency, yeah, it is, because it's right behind some 240 Hz monitors that I have tested. So that's actually a very good result for a 4K mini LED monitor. But moving on to the UFO test, here it does falter a little bit. Obviously, as you can see on the right with that Asus OLED, that thing absolutely smokes this thing in terms of motion clarity, but it's not necessarily terrible either. It's kind of just like a decent result. I'm not mad about it, but nothing to write home about, and you'll definitely want to be getting 100 Hz or higher. As you can see, at 60 Hz, it does get very blurry. So you will need a powerful graphics card to take full advantage of this display. Now, in terms of the text clarity, since it is an RGB display, we are seeing excellent text reproduction, making it, between the high brightness and good text, an excellent work monitor. But what about the finish? And here, guys, I got some unfortunate news. Yes, it is using a matte finish. Now, thankfully, KTC's matte finishes aren't like atrocious. It's not anywhere near as good as a glossy display. It is going to unfortunately impact the contrast ratios as well as the vibrancy and the clarity, but it's not as bad as some others I've seen. But that being said, it's still just such a shame that manufacturers continue to use these awful matte finishes. Why? God help me. Do we have to put up with this? I'm going to see if I can actually go ahead and buff it out. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe I'll just ruin the monitor. But that's how much I absolutely hate these matte finishes. In my opinion, they really don't help at all. And it's just a huge shame that they continue to use them. But despite that, guys, it is still a good monitor. Let's move on to the uniformity before I go ahead and burst a blood vessel. Here, overall, it's not too bad, but in some low light scenes, you can sometimes see some backlight bleed that can make it look a little bit odd, but in actual games and content that you do, it didn't look bad at all. So overall, guys, is this actually a really good monitor? And I'm gonna say, yeah, it's an excellent monitor. In fact, this may be one of the best PC monitor HDR displays on the market today. It's a good size, it's a good resolution, it gets very, very bright, it has good color. The only downsides are it's using a matte finish, the motion performance isn't amazing, and then finally, mini LED isn't as good in the micro contrast as OLED, but overall, very, very good display. I do actually recommend it, especially at that $800 price point roughly, and I would go ahead and take advantage of that, guys. Now, if you are looking for a great HDR monitor under $1,000 and you're not willing to wait for those crazy, probably around $1,500 glossy OLEDs that are going to be coming out sometime next year. Hold up, future display guy here, and I do also want to mention that for some reason, when the monitor goes to sleep, sometimes it messes up what I think is either the gamma or the contrast, and it does require you to switch color profiles back and forth to fix it. So if that's a deal breaker, totally understand. I just wanted to let you know, and I don't know when it's going to be fixed, although it should be fixed at some point in the future with a firmware update. Whether you're looking to connect a new console, gaming PC, or just need a fast and reliable HDMI cable to connect over long distances, Rupro has you covered with their certified 8K HDMI 2.1 fiber optic cable available in sizes of up to 50 feet and can deliver a perfect full 48 gigabits per second connection over distances other cables could only dream of reaching. And with 48 gigabits per second of bandwidth, it can easily drive 8K 60 FPS or 4K 144 FPS 10-bit HDR video through its ultra-thin, flexible, and durable housing, and it even supports ER. So if you're in the market for a cable that can drive a beautiful new TV or monitor, be sure to check out Rupro on Amazon today.